All right, everyone. Welcome to this workshop on speed learning. So that's reading, listening, and learning. We're going to teach you how to double your learning speed, but not only learning speed, also retention, because that's a huge thing here. A lot of people, there's a lot of speed reading things out there that are just about reading faster and you're kind of skipping words and stuff like that. That's not what we're doing here. We want to learn how to read faster, but also absorb faster, because that's the whole point of anything that we're trying to learn. We want to really be absorbing that knowledge. So speed learning, speed retention. All right, so just for today, what you need, if I have a book, ideally one that you don't mind, we're going to might write in the margins, so one that you might not mind writing in a little bit. Again, just a little, we're just going to mark some things, pen and a paper. All right, and what to expect over the next 45 minutes to an hour. So I'm going to have a brief introduction on what I really want to work on today, why I think this is important, an overview about the techniques that we're going to use. Then we're going to literally go through the process. I'm going to go through it right along with you. Then we're going to wrap up and we're going to see, what we've learned over the course of this brief workshop. All right. So I'm going to just give people a few seconds. Again, if you don't have a book, a pen, and a paper, go grab one right now. And once again, please, if you're have a place to be like quiet, because there are going to be a few times when I'm asking you to read, where I'm going to be asking you to pay full attention to whatever you're reading. So set yourself up in a little nook or cranny of your house or something like that. All right, hope everyone's ready. So first thing, just to introduce myself, some people know me, some people don't. My name is Paul Leviton. I've been a coach in various areas, from fitness to health to life coaching to happiness coaching over the last 10 years. I'm an educator. I create courses. I have a course on mindset. I have a course on self-sabotage, lots of different things around helping people be more successful, better, fully formed humans. I'm a podcaster, the Healthy, Happy Human podcast. Has over 70 episodes and almost 80 at this point. I've been interviewed on over 50 different podcasts and blogs and things like that. And I'm an avid reader. So this year I'm on pace to read about 100 books. The previous years I've read 80, 60, 70 books in a year. And all of that helps me be a lifelong learner. And being a lifelong learner is something that I pride myself on, because I think that the more you can know, the more you can grow, and the more you can grow, the more you can know. I think that people who stop learning is a quick way to start declining. But before, I was the Healthy, Happy Human. This is me. So yeah, I wasn't always the Healthy, Happy Human. And the reason I picked these pictures is because, if you can see, I don't know if you know what a drunken stupor looks like, but this was my general face in most of my 20s, from the time I was about 17 to about 27. More pictures look like this than do not. And the ones that don't look like this tend to look like this, where I was just straight up passed out. So people look at me now. I have a brand, I have a company, the Healthy, Happy Human. I'm a life coach. I'm this, I'm that. But I was not always this way. I just told you I might read 100 books this year. Things were not always this way. So I put all this out there to explain that, don't think that I am in any way feel that I'm special or anything like that. My whole point with all of this is understanding that I went from nothing to something, and that means that anyone else can do it as well. Right. So to give you a little bit of explanation, a little bit of a timeline, right? So 100 books, that seems like a crazy thing, and it is, right? So as of today, I've read almost 30 books this year. In 2021, I read about 80 books. 2020, 66. 2019, 20. 2018, about 6 books. And from 2007 to 2017, I read 0 books. So I was not a reader. I was not the type of person who read books. I didn't read from high school into college. Even in school, I didn't even buy the books. Like, I was the most anti-reading person that there ever was. So again, I created this because I learned about reading, and I wanted to read more. So I crafted my lifestyle around this so that I could be this type of person. But you don't have to be a big reader, and these numbers are arbitrary. You don't have to read as much as me. That's not the point of any of this. The point is just to say that you can go from never reading to reading a ton, like I did. Okay. And what changed? So as I said, from 2000 2007 to 2017, or even before that, I just didn't read at all. Around 2017, I was handed a few books from friends, and I decided to read a little bit, and I wanted to get more into it. More so, right around the time I started really getting into personal development, right? I wanted to be better for myself, and I realized that there was a lot of great books out there that could really help me on my journey to becoming better, at my job, becoming better as a person. And I really wanted to embrace that. So I started reading, and I read here and there, again, 4 or 5 books a year, 6 books a year. It wasn't until about 2019 that I learned about speed reading, and I embraced reading as a practice and a skill. So, yes, it's still a hobby. It's still just something that you do for fun. Obviously, I don't win a prize for reading a bunch or reading fast. But I learned that just like you can increase your muscles in the gym and get stronger, just like you can, increase your understanding of whatever your job is at work, you can become a better reader. People think that they're, good readers and bad readers, or I'm a slow reader, I'm a fast reader. But in general, there's really trained and untrained, right? Most people learned how to read when they were 5, 6, 7 years old, up until elementary school. And then you kind of stop learning any more skills about reading, right? You might be told to read more, but you're not trained to do it in any way. So when I understood that this was actually a thing that I could train, just like I could train a muscle, just like I could train anything else, and I embraced that and I leaned into it, my reading speed went up, the amount of knowledge I could get went up, everything kind of went together after that. And I think that this is super important because of compound interest, right? So people will say like, well, why rush through every book? Like, why try to read so fast? Why is that important? Isn't that kind of crazy? Which it is kind of crazy, but I think about compound interest, right? And you see Albert Einstein said, compound interest is the greatest invention the world has ever produced. And Charlie Munger, if you don't know who Charlie Munger is, he's the business partner of Warren Buffett, the two of them are two of the richest men in the world, two of the smartest men ever. He says, understanding both the power of compound interest and the difficulty of getting it is at the heart and soul of understanding a lot of things. Meaning compound interest is powerful, and compound interest meaning like you can't just think about the effect of reading 1 book extra or 2 books extra today. What I think about is if I went from reading 10 books a year to 30 books a year, that's 3x speed. That's 3 times more in 1 year. What happens after 10 years of doing it? What happens after 15 years of doing that? When you've now read 100 more books than you would have had you not embraced this style of learning. It's exponential growth that is so easy to take advantage of, right? So when I think about learning, I want to think about the compound interest, not about what this is doing for me today, but what will 10 years of learning in this way do for me? What will 20 years of learning this way do for me? And, being in the world that we live in now, where technology is changing and a lot of things are going to change in the next, the next decade or so, in terms of, what are humans really doing? And there's computers can do so much for us. One of the things that we can always do is focus on getting better ourselves. And the skill of learning is something that allows you to do that. Right? Meta learning is the skill of learning about learning. And that's something that I want to embrace, and what I'm trying to teach you all here today. So there's a quote I love that says, success loves speed, right? If you're going to do it, I want to get it done. But whenever I talk about this, people will always give a pushback of like, well, 1, like, does everything have to be done faster? But 2, doesn't that make things harder, right? If I'm speed reading, or if I'm trying to just zoom through everything, aren't I going to retain less knowledge, right? When I talk about speed reading, they go, oh, well, that would be cool, but I want to make sure I remember everything, right? So that's why I'm saying a big part of this is retention. I want to make sure that you not only read, but retain. I want to make sure not only that you watch a YouTube video, listen to whatever you're doing, but that you're retaining all of the knowledge, all of the information. So the thing is, imagine this, right? Imagine you're on the left and you're not in dead stop traffic, but you're in a traffic on the whatever that is in California, the 405 highway or something like that. You're in New York, you're on the Belt Parkway, and things are going slow. You're going 15 miles an hour, maybe. Lots of red brake lights ahead of you. You're probably gonna be on your phone. You might be talking to someone. You might even be scrolling Instagram, even though you're not supposed to. You don't really have to pay attention to the traffic because you're just kind of going through the motions. You go into a sort of autopilot. You might have the experience of when you're in this type of traffic, or maybe you're driving home through your neighborhood that you've done 1,000 times. You kind of just don't even realize what happened, and you get to your destination and you're like, wait, how did I even get here? You kind of just like, you just go through the motions and you go into autopilot and you just get there. It's a very low level of thinking. But now let's watch this video.
Here we go.
So that guy just went from 0 to 130 miles per hour in about 10 seconds. I can guarantee you we couldn't see his hands, but I bet you both hands were on the wheel. I bet you he wasn't scrolling on Instagram. He wasn't looking at TikTok. I can bet you he wasn't talking to the person next to him. Both hands were on the wheel. Both eyes were focused on what was going on. And the point of this analogy is that when things are going slow, your brain wanders, right? When you're watching even a TV show, even, and it's at like a dull lull in the moment, our brain wants to go away, right? You start again looking at your phone, you start checking email or something like that. But when it's fast and when there's a rush, you have to pay more attention. So by reading faster, learning faster, whatever it is, you actually pay more attention and not less. Okay, so that's the whole kind of secret sauce behind all of this, is that it's a double whammy. Not only am I getting the information faster, I'm actually retaining more of it because I'm forced to focus more on what I'm actually doing, as opposed to my mind wandering, right? We're going to talk about some of the reasons that people read and do things slowly. And a big part of that is that your mind wanders as you're reading. And if we can flip that and read faster so that your brain doesn't have a chance to wander, your mind can't wander, you actually end up retaining much more of the information, and you do it in a faster way. So super simple. Before we even get into reading, what does this tell me? This tells me that I want to speed it up, right? YouTube has a speed changer on all of its videos. Most podcast players will do the same. I also use a Chrome extension called Video Speed Controller that allows me to speed up any videos. So I can take any YouTube video and speed it up to 1.25, 1.5, 2x speed. Again, podcasts will often go up to 2.5 or 3x speed. Now, again, why is this important? Because I'm getting more faster and retaining more. So again, if I'm watching a fun YouTube video, I don't care about that. But if I'm trying to watch a lecture, a TED Talk or something like that, and it's a 30-minute TED Talk, and I can speed that up to, 2x speed and watch that in 15 minutes. And now I get 30 minutes of information in 15 minutes. And I also take in more of it because I'm not scrolling my phone while I'm doing it, because I'm having to pay attention more. I'm having to pay more attention because it's going so fast. I can't be listening to it in the background and letting it just play while I'm kind of like on another tab, right? I literally have to be paying attention to it, and that forces me to actually be in the moment. So now again, going back to what is the compound interest of that? So now again, I'm saving 15 minutes. I'm getting more information into my head, and I'm retaining more of it because I'm listening more actively. Right. Usually a lot of times we do very passive listening, where again, we have the thing on, we're washing dishes, we're watching TV or something like that, but it's just kind of going in the background, which is fine. Again, I listen to podcasts like that. I listen to educational content like that. But the point is, like, am I actively listening, or is it just kind of going and my brain is just like, what's going to be for dinner tonight? What else am I doing? So the point is, by speeding it up, I actually get more out of it. Right. And then again, I also save more time. And this becomes a game changer. And this is why I'm so passionate about this, because again, think about what that looks like over the course, a 15-minute video versus a 30-minute video. Okay. But it's like, I've done weekend-long seminars where it's like 8 hours of education, and being able to speed that up into 4 hours, 3 hours or something like that is much more manageable. I personally would never be able to sit there for 8 hours. My ADD would kick in and I would go crazy. But if I can cram 8 hours into 4 hours or 2.5 hours, that becomes much more manageable for me. And it opens up windows into what I would actually be able to do, because I wouldn't do a full 8-hour course, but an 8-hour course that I get to take in 3.5 hours actually makes a big difference to me. So that's easy enough said for things that have a speeder on it, right? The YouTube and the video thing and the podcast thing all have literal a thing that you can speed it up, right? Then none of this is new. This stuff exists already. But what about with reading? And I think that this is so powerful with reading because, as it says here, readers are leaders, right? You know, Warren Buffett, I mentioned Charlie Munger before. Warren Buffett spends most of his time reading. This is one of the richest men in the world. And Bill Gates, who we see on the right here, is famous for having reading weeks where he would take 1 to 2 weeks off and unplug from all of his various companies and go to a little cabin in the woods and just read, you know, dozens and dozens of books. And this is someone who is in charge of multiple multi-billion dollar companies, and he makes time to just read. Warren Buffett makes time to read every day. Now, again, you could say like, well, that's must be nice for them to be so rich that they have the time to just read. But my point is that they're able to just read and read much faster and take in more knowledge and information because they've embraced the skill of learning and reading faster. I can guarantee you that Warren Buffett and Bill Gates both read much faster than the average person because they've practiced it. They've been reading so much for so long that they get in a lot more information than you or I would on a random afternoon. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to test your reading speed. So what I want you to do is take out the book that you have, start at the beginning of a chapter or the beginning of any place, you know, a regular page break or something, and just put a little mark next to where you are reading, where you're starting. And I'm going to start the timer for 2 minutes. And I just want you to read for 2 minutes, and then we're going to figure it out after that. So I'm going to start the timer right now and just read at the normal pace that you would normally read at. Don't try to do it very fast. Don't try to do anything. Just read exactly like you normally might doing it on your own. All right, I'm going to start the timer now. All right, awesome. All right, you can stop reading for a second and just put a mark next to where you just stopped. Okay, so now what I want you to do is you're going to pick 3 consecutive lines. So it doesn't matter where you are. You're just going to pick, 1, 2, 3. And I want you to count the number of words in each line and then average those numbers. So if I'm doing this here, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 9, 11, and 12 would be 32. And then I average that to about 10.3 words per line or something like that. So I want you to count any 3 random lines, add them up, average them, right? Then you're going to, once you've done that, count the number of lines that you read. So from that place where you marked where you started, count the number of lines to where you ended in those 2 minutes. And then you have the number of lines you read, and you have the number of words, average number of words per line, and you're going to multiply number of lines by average number of words per line, and that gives you the amount of words that you read in 2 minutes. All right, so I'm going to give everyone just a quick couple seconds to do that and just write down that number somewhere. All right, so hopefully you have that, and just have that, written down, and you can put the book down for a second now. So if we want to understand reading faster, we have to really, all we have to understand is what actually slows us down when we're reading, because most people know how to read, but the thing is that we tend to get distracted, right? Our mind wanders and we lose our place. So a lot of time when you're reading, a lot of time is spent going back and rereading things, right? Or you lose your place, or you get to the bottom of the page and you kind of get to the end of the paragraph and you go, wait, what did I even just read? And you reread. So a lot of the time we're wasting our own time. It's not that we're not reading that fast, it's that we continually have to reread the same thing 2, 3, 4 times, right? So that's because we're losing our place. Our mind is wandering. And there's also that internal narration, which I'll get to in a second, but the mind wandering thing, that's the whole point of the speed, right? What I use in the analogy of sitting in traffic versus driving down the highway at 100 miles per hour. When you're sitting in traffic, your mind is doing a bunch of different things, right? It's thinking about, what am I going to have for dinner? It's thinking about, what did Susie say at the meeting the other day? It's saying, what all this stuff as you're reading, because your brain can do that. But when you're hyper focused and you're reading much faster, a lot of that quiets down, because your brain can't be reading fast or listening fast and also wandering, thinking about 100 different things. So inherently, if we can get our brain to focus on the one thing that we're actually trying to read and not be thinking about what we're going to have for dinner, about, the report I have to give in tomorrow, about what I did in, my 3rd grade class that for some reason I'm thinking about, if I can quiet all of that stuff, that's a big step, and that will help us read a lot faster, but also not continually be going back and thinking about that stuff again and having to reread. And then there's also the internal narration, because a lot of people read like this. They're in their head as they're reading, they're going, reading faster, what slows down reading, distraction, losing your place, mind wandering, internal narration. So if I'm reading in my head out loud, as I'm reading on the page, that means that my reading speed is limited to whatever speed I can narrate it in my head. And this might seem logical, except that we can listen and learn and read much faster than that, which is evidenced by the fact that, like I said, if I turned on a video or an audio book and put it on 2x speed and then 3x speed, your brain would be able to understand what is going on. It would sound very fast. It would sound like this, and they would be talking like this, whatever. And even though I'm talking really fast, you can still understand what I'm saying, because as I speed it up, my brain can still comprehend that. Now, you wouldn't read like that and speak like that, so your reading is inherently slowed down by your internal narration. So if we can get you from where you're losing your place and having to restart over and over a bunch of times, if we can stop your mind from wandering, and if we can either speed up or get rid of completely your internal narration, these 3 things will inherently increase your reading speed and increase the rate at which you're finishing things and paying attention to it and retaining more. So the first thing, the easiest thing that you can ever do is to use a pointer. Okay, this is key number 1. If you do nothing else that I teach you today, this will increase your speed right away. So when I'm reading, I'm following a pointer. This can be my finger, this can be a pen, this can be anything, but I'm literally following this. And there's a reason behind this, right? So if we watch this video, as you watch the screen, you see as soon as the rabbit runs across, right? You see these animals moving in the snow, even though the snow is all white, right? You see it instantly. And the point of this is that our brain is trained to track movement for exactly that reason, right? In evolutionary terms, if I was looking out over a vast white abyss, that is snow, or all green, I'm in the savannah, or it's all yellow because I'm looking out after over hay or something like that. As hunters, which is what humans are, our eyes are trained to see movement, right? So if you're looking at a field like that and you see a tiny little animal, right, even if it's not on the screen, if you were literally watching a huge, if you were literally out there in the Arctic like that and you saw a little rabbit run by, it would catch your eye and your eye would track to it automatically. So our vision automatically tracks to movement. So we can take advantage of that. Now, rather than me just using my eyes, if I actually use a finger tracer or my pen, my eyes will stay on it and I don't lose my place on the page as much. So that's point one. But then point two, I can speed that up. So it's hard for me to just say read faster, right? Obviously I would if I could. I can't control that in my head right this second. But what I can control is how fast my pen moves. So as I'm reading, if my eyes are tracking my pen and I start to move my pen faster, with practice, my eyes will track that and I will get faster and faster simply from doing that. So what we're going to do now, we're going to retest for 2 minutes, simply using the tracer tracker technique, meaning take your finger, take a pen, whatever it is, and use that to literally trace the words. So this should be right under the word, and you're just going across from line to line, eyes following the tracer and using that to guide you through the page. Okay, so you're going to put a mark where you started, same thing again. And I'm going to hit start, and I just want you to read at, again, whatever pace you can, but using the finger tracer. Okay, 2 minutes starts now. All right, 2 minutes is up. So you already know, right? You have from last time your average number of words per line. So I want you to, again, just count the amount of lines that you read in that 12 in that 2 minutes, and then multiply it by your average number of words per line. And then I'm just going to stop sharing for a second, and I just want to know, whoops. If anyone can come off mute and just let me know, was there a difference? Did you see, like, comparing the number that you got from the first time to the number that you got this time? Was there any difference? Any of you who want to unmute yourself and either come just on voice or video?
So there was definitely a difference. Um, I'll just come on video.
Yeah.
A definite difference. I still can't figure out the mathematics of it. I'll get to that, but it was a little bit hard with the retention. I think I still struggled with the retention, but making myself do that was making me realize, wow, I actually can absorb more than I think I can.
Right. And we'll get to that in a second. Again, there's layers to this, but I appreciate that, and I'll explain that more in a little bit. Zoe, what about you? Is there a specific number that you know that changed?
So I actually didn't quite hear the mathematic part, so I didn't get an exact number. But you did repeat it, so I'm trying to find it now in my calculator. But just by marking, I did notice.
Or even just lines, if you can just count like how many lines you read on the first one versus how many lines you read this time is an easy way to do it. It's just putting words per minute to.
Yeah, I would say I read like about like 5 to 8 more lines in the second. And I could just notice myself reading a little bit faster. But the last person that talked, I did notice the retention. I could see myself like skipping words and not really noticing what I read.
Right. I'll get to that in a second. 100%. All right. I'm going to mute you guys again because we're going to get and keep doing this. So first thing is understand that, all of this is a skill, right? And there's a reason, this is a practice. Like I said, learning is a practice. This is a skill. So it's all going to be weird. It's not going to be perfect the first few times. Again, your brain isn't used to doing this, right? So we have to everything understand. And sometimes you're going to lose a bit before you gain a bit in terms of retention wise, as you kind of adjust to this reading speed. Okay. So the second key, and we're going to do one more thing to make you read faster, and then we're going to get to the retention thing as well. But the second thing has to do with our peripheral vision, right? So right now, as you are tracking with your finger, you might have gone from one margin all the way to the other. But understand that as humans, we have peripheral vision, right? I don't need to be looking directly at you. I can see something out the side of my eye, right? And this goes back to exactly what I was saying, using as an analogy before, the rabbit that's running in the field, right? So if I can be looking directly forward, and then if I see something move right out the corner of my eye, I'm going to latch onto it a little bit faster. And that our peripheral vision field is much larger than our direct vision. So all that is to say that when we're doing this, tracking with our finger or with the pen, you don't actually need to be going from the full line, right? So I can go about to, this is 100% of the line. I can go about from an indent of 1 to 2 words to an indent of 1 to 2 words, and only read the 80% only look at the 80% in the middle, but my peripheral vision will pick up the outside words. So when I'm saying my finger is just going here, right? So I'm if you watch me trace it, I might just go like this, and I'm not going to the end, but I'm still reading those words. My brain is still comprehending them. I'm still picking them up. I just don't have to focus them, right? Going back to the subvocalization, I don't have to say, when Joe was in the first grade, he enjoyed school and did well. I can kind of just go in the middle, and my brain will catch these things because that's what it's been trained to do over hundreds of millions of years of evolution. Okay, so what we're going to do is, keeping that in mind, we're going to try again, right? And all we're going to do is you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to be tracing with your finger or with the pen, but you're just going to try to stop within the margins a little bit. So really, you're not going to go from first letter to last letter. You're going to kind of stay within, you're going to, indent the margins about 20% more, and only use your finger and your pen that much to read through the margins. And see, again, it's going to be weird because you will skip some words from time to time, but as you train your brain with this stuff and practice this stuff, you will start to pick up those things more and more and more. All right, so I'm going to start the timer again, and we're just going to do the exact same thing. We're going to see how this affects your speed. All right, let's do it. All right. So once again, if you don't want to calculate the whole words, just count the number of lines that you read, right? So you can compare how many lines did you read this time to how many lines did you read the second time versus how many lines did you read the very first time when you were just reading on your own. And that in and of itself will show you a good indication of how much faster you're able to read with these techniques. Now, again, if you're thinking like, well, I was not really comprehending all of that, or I was kind of skimming through it, again, you have to practice this. And there's levels to it, right? So that's the great thing about the finger thing, or the tracer. You can turn up and down that speed as much as you want, right? So again, if you're now, instead of just being like, I read as fast as I read, it's I read as fast as my finger traces. So if I'm reading something that's super dense and I need to really be like, hold on, like I need to really be involved in this, I'll slow it down. But if I'm reading and I just want to kind of zoom through it, I will still retain much more of the knowledge, because again, my peripheral vision is picking up a lot of what I think that I'm not. So I'm getting a lot more into my brain than I really realize. It's the same way as, if you drive by if you're driving on the highway and you see one of those big signs that talks about, what exit to get off at, you can be driving 80 miles an hour and zoom right past it, and your brain recognizes exactly what the sign said. You didn't have to break down each individual word into its individual letters. You didn't have to break down the sentence into its individual constituent words. Your brain understood that it said Rosedale, three exits to the left, in 5.6 miles. It just registers instantly as because that's what your brain is meant to do. So, we have this thought of like, I have to read each individual word like this and break it down in my brain like this, but that's not really how it works. Your brain can absorb knowledge and information at a much higher, faster rate. You just have to give it a reason to, and you have to teach it that it's okay. Okay, so once again, right? You can calculate the speed by counting your lines, multiply that by average words per line. And again, you can just count the amount of words in a line and just say that there's, if you again, this book has about 10 words per line. So if I read 11 lines at 10 words per line, that's about 110 words in 2 minutes. Okay. And then I can compare that to whatever I did before. And, that's all we're trying to do, is to see that if there was or wasn't an increase. So the last thing that we have to talk about is the inner monologue. So like I said before, if I am vocalizing every word, when Joe was in the first grade, he enjoyed school and did well. He learned to read, count, and I can only read as fast as I can only read in my head as fast as I can read out loud. And that's going to be pretty slow for most people, considering, as I said, you can speed up audio to about 3 to 4x speed and still retain and listen to 100% of the information. We can actually take in much more, much faster than we would ever talk. So in order to really kick this into high gear, you have to kind of quiet that voice inside your head. And I'll admit that this is expert level, right? So the reason I started with just the finger thing, because I think that's the most important. And simply doing that will increase your speed by 2 to 3 fold. Then when you use the margin trick as well, where you're not going from margin to margin, you're going inside the margin. Just from doing those 2 things, you can, again, considerably increase your speed. If you did nothing else, you would be fine. Now, silencing your inner monologue as you're reading is a huge next step, but this is much harder and it takes even more active practice. So I will say that like, this is kind of like, if you want to kick it to the next high gear. And there are a few different techniques that you can do this to try to do this, but in reality, it's as simple as just trying to have your inner monologue be something super simple. So techniques that I've used are literally just counting or counting to 3 over and over again. So rather than me trying to read each word open like this, in my head as I'm reading, I'm literally saying 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again, not out loud, in my head. And what this does is that my inner monologue can only be saying one thing at a time. Right? It just I can't be thinking 15 different things at once. So if I'm taking up that sub vocalization, that inner monologue by 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, I now can't read what I'm doing out loud in my head like that. I can still read it again, just like I said, just like I can be having this conversation with you and reading what's on the page, right? The page right here, right? Like you can be talking and reading at the same time. Or again, I could be having a conversation with someone as I walk past a billboard. And even though we were involved in conversation, I still registered everything that the billboard said on it, right? So we have this thing of like, well, I can't talk and read at the same time, or how am I going to be saying 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 over in my head and actually be reading? But your brain, again, is very smart and it will know, it doesn't take a lot of brain power to say 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 over and over again. What it does is it just takes away that subvocalization. And now your brain that's reading is just you have a very low amount of mental energy being taken to repeat those numbers over and over in your head. And the rest can go towards the reading. So this technique, again, is a little advanced and it takes practice, but if you're the type of person who catches yourself always like you're reading and then you're like, wait, your brain is wandering into another place, or again, you're thinking about what you're going to be doing for dinner, or you're reading and you get to the end of the page and you're just lost in space somewhere and you're not even talking about you're not even thinking about what's on the page. This can be a great technique. So we're going to combine all 3 of those. And now you're going to use the tracer in between the margins, and you're going to try to quiet that subvocalization by counting silently in your head, right? So you're not counting out loud or anything like that. And it can be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It can be just saying potato, 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 potato. It doesn't really matter what you do. I just like the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 because it's so simple. But whatever you're doing, you're just trying to repeat something over and over and over that takes away that subvocalization in your head so that you're able to then move faster and not be slowed down by yourself reading each individual word and each individual thing. All right, so I'm going to hit start on this again, and we're going to go one more time. All right, awesome. Okay, so what I want you to do now is to just count that number of lines that you read in this last go around, and then count the number of lines you did the very first time. So before with nothing else. So I want you to compare what you read lines. Again, you can compare lines or words, whatever is easier for you, the amount of lines, and then compare that to the amount of lines that you read when you first started, when you were doing nothing else. So just take a second to do that. And then when you have, just let me know, come off mute for a second, and then just let me know what the difference is. Yeah, go
The
ahead.
difference that I had, oh, okay. From the first to last, it was 40 lines. Which,
And what was it the first time? Like what was it? How much did you read the first time we paused it?
the first time that we did it, it was only 18 lines.
That's awesome. So that's a 2x difference, right? So that's
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking for, right? That's literally doubled, right? You went from less than 20 to about 40 lines in the same period of time. That's amazing. What about you, Kelly?
So I had 27 more lines the first time we increased, like I forgot what it was. And then second time around, I had, hold on, I'm still figuring it out, but 27, hold on.
Well, just
I think it was literally just a sentence more the second time around, but then the third time around with the 1, 2, 3, it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was 6 more lines the third time around,
awesome. Love that.
but all improvements.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. And that's all, that's great. That's all improvements. Yeah. And then, not everyone has to go. I'm just curious. So, and again, I'm going to share again my screen, but my point with that is, like I said, that all of that is a practice, right? So that's just the very first time. And even that, it feels weird. The more you do this and the more you apply it, it will continually get better and better and better. That's just how it works. Your brain will adapt to it more. It'll get a little bit faster, a little bit faster, a little bit faster, and you'll be able to retain more, and things will make more sense. Right. So we did this, we calculated your speed. So the reason that I think this is so important is because how did I go from this guy on the left to this guy on the right? I'm not saying that speed reading is what did that, but what I am saying is that adopting a mindset of learning did. The guy on the left didn't read any books, didn't listen to any podcasts, didn't go to any personal development things. I didn't care, right? The guy on the right, that's all my life is about. It's about bettering myself, learning more, doing more, being better. And I've embraced that as a practice. And I understand that it doesn't happen in one day. Today wasn't meant to, again, say that any of this stuff is going to stick, or that, that your reading speed is going to stay doubled for the rest of your life. That's not what the point of this is. But the point is, if you embrace a habit and a lifestyle of lifelong learning, and embrace that fact that these are skills, you are not set in stone where you are. You can be a better reader, you can be a better listener, you can be a better communicator, you can be a better learner. If you commit to practicing it, that is what will change your life. That is what will get you from being stuck wherever you're at to reaching levels that you never thought was possible. So I hope that this was super helpful for everyone in attendance. And I thank you all for being here so much.